All right, well, the little red light, we're live on YouTube. So guess what that means? It means it's Friday. And it's Friday, May the 8th, which is a special day for me because it means I'm having a birthday. So happy birthday to me.
Dude, yes, happy birthday, Joel.
Thank you. Thank you. Happy to be with you. It is today, let's see, it's 3:30 here on the East Coast. And this is the daily briefing with myself and Tim and our special guest, PJ Richardson at Laundry. PJ, say hello.
Hello, everyone.
Welcome, PJ. It's good to have you back. We're going to sort of throw you into the hot seat a bit today. So I appreciate you being our willing victim.
Yeah, absolutely.
Tim, say hello as well.
Hey, it's good to be with you all today. I'm in Los Angeles, so I've made it from East Coast to West Coast. Joel, that's your birthday present. I've made it here safely and did not get infected by any virus.
So your birthday present to me was that you're even further away from me. Is that what it is?
Yeah. You said it, not me.
Well, it's good to be with everyone here today. It's going to be, I think, sort of a low-key but fun conversation. Tim, do you want to set up some of the context for this week? Obviously, I was out yesterday. I saw a little bit of the conversation you had with Ryan, which I thought was really cool, talking about a lot of the practicalities of hiring and firing and all the things that we do with our employees that work for us and trying to make our team strong. But then we've had some questions throughout the week that we said, hey, let's bring these into Friday and start tackling some of these questions we didn't get to. And a lot of the questions that were coming up were around sales. And do you want to mention the thread that some of the threads you saw going on in 7 Ingredients between PJ and a few others?
Yeah, and PJ, thanks for joining us and being part of this. You're so active in our Slack channels and jumping in the conversations. I appreciate you putting the effort and sharing your expertise.
Absolutely, yeah. No, it's been interesting to see and I think also really just so many good questions that I've had and that you guys have always helped us answer, or at least navigate. Because sometimes I don't think there is one answer that fits all for everything. But I love it. It's really good stuff.
Yeah,
well, I have to mention this, Tim, real quick. That in my talk at DDD, it was fun to do a little shout out to PJ and share some of what they learned going through positioning, which then built the foundation for really great marketing and sales. So you guys are a really great case study. So I always want to say thanks for being willing to share your story, PJ. It's awesome and inspiring.
Absolutely. We just, like I said earlier, we've just messed it up more than everybody else. So I'm happy to share what those discoveries are to keep everybody else from having made to do a little less trial and error, hopefully.
Yeah, we love it. So in the Slack channels, if those of you who are part of the Slack channels, please feel free to join us. We've broken those out into each of the 7 ingredients. Sales, finance, production, marketing are the ones that we're kind of hitting up today because PJ is live in those. And entrepreneurship actually was one of the ones that I saw for you, PJ.
Okay.
And then throughout the week, we also had Meg open talking to us about the storytelling. And I just love her perspective of reverse engineering storytelling. We talked a lot about positioning, and then of course yesterday some employment things, which PJ, I'm pretty sure I could have dragged you into the whole conversation yesterday too about employee relations. There's a lot going on. Yeah. But let's get to the one I specifically reached out to you for today, because there's a lot of conversation right now with sales, and I think that's probably just like the condition of the industry right now. People are a little bit back to work. We've been calling it the new normal, which is we now are kind of out of the crisis mode and work is starting to come in, but people are hitting different types or different offers out there. And the one that I picked up from Miguel reads like this. It says, for your sales strategy, oh, not that one, I'm sorry. The other one was, oh, dang, I skipped it. Let me just ask this one first, and then I'll find the second one. This one says, for your sales strategy, how many days do you want to wait to contact somebody, again, with your lead for each phase of the process? For example, after your first contact, after you send a second item like a budget or something else, how do you kind of avoid annoying somebody, following up with them too often? Do you guys, maybe Joel, you and PJ too, like what what is your rule of thumb of how soon you follow up with somebody? And do you have any kind of guiding principles of how often to reach out and what that reach out would look like?
Joel, you want to?
I'm happy to go first, PJ. You want me to start?
Yeah.
I mean, I would say the overall rule of thumb is the less well known you are, the less frequently you reach out and follow up. I mean, that's as simple as it is. It's like if you're tight and you've worked with somebody a lot, you can reach out every few days and have a conversation. It's a real human conversation. It's a real relationship. The less you know somebody, like in my mind, I'm seeing a graph of like, you know, if you know somebody very little, you'd reach out a little. As you know somebody a lot, you might reach out and follow up a lot. But PJ, I think you already practice this, right? When you are close with somebody and you have a relationship built on trust and past success, reaching out frequently is fine, and following up frequently is fine. That if you don't know somebody very well, you probably don't want to reach out more than every 2 or 3 weeks at the most, I would think, because you've got to find a way to offer value. And how frequently can you really reach out and offer value to share your expertise without it becoming obvious that it's a self-serving, hey, give me a project type of a conversation that's really going on.
That's 100% right. Like I mean, look, whether you send a reel or a link to your reel or you just say hi, everybody knows why you're emailing. Like they know that it's to get work. So you don't really have to say it too deep. Like you can, like if it's someone, even if it's someone I know really well, I'll check with them, you know, maybe once a month, and I'll be like, just like, okay, so at the beginning of this pandemic, I would just check and be like, hey, how are you doing? And I didn't mention work at all, and they'd say, I'm good, or I'm bad, or I'm this, or I'm that. I really look forward to trying to collaborate with you guys. Like they got it, they knew what it was, you know. And then if it's and you can do that more frequently for people you're closer with, you know. But then if it's someone you don't like, if you reach out to them frequently, you better have something to give them. Like we made Zoom backgrounds and sent those out, and that was
awesome.
Yeah. But it also can't be like, you have to pay attention to who they are and what they are, and pick up on some, like make it matter to them specifically. Like, so if they're into 3D because they're an artist, creative director, so, you know, send them some cool stuff like that. If it's a business thing, that way. But it's a very delicate balance.
So what's the compromise if you reach out to them too soon? What is lost? And then what if you if you don't reach out to them frequently enough? What's lost?
I think look, it's a very weird thing and I've actually had clients tell me this, which is wild. Ones that like us, like if you reach out too soon, they just won't answer, and that'll do one of two things. Either they'll just be like, they're annoying, I don't want to hear from them. Or sometimes they like you. Like I had one client tell me like, hey, I didn't respond to 6 of your emails over 9 months because I didn't have anything. But as soon as I did, I called you. Like, you know what I mean? So people operate differently, particularly with email or phone calls. And some people just are like, they're like minimalists. They don't want to, you know, chit chat if they don't have anything substantial. But everybody sees it, unless you have like, you know, unless your email is so-and-so at like freereplicawatches.com or something like that. Just going right to spam.
Oh, I love that guy's email. It's like one of my favorites. So it sounds to me like there has to be some knowledge of what that person is looking for, what value you present to that person would change. We could change how frequently you're out there. Maybe some timing, maybe some relevant timing that would be very important to that outreach. Watching the news, watching their LinkedIn, feeling free to kind of comment on what that person's going on. Also, it doesn't always have to be email, right? It can be other channels of outreach. One that I know that works well, I think you use this too, PJ, is the mention. Like you're doing a post on LinkedIn and you mention someone else in the post. You see the work they're doing and do that mention. Yeah. So you can bring people into your conversation without addressing them directly.
It all goes, I mean, there or like LinkedIn messaging, or I got a lead yesterday through Instagram DM. Like it can, you know, it's, I think it's You know, the thing about it is, I mean, you can do it, and it works sometimes. For it just, again, depends on the personality. You can go directly at it and be like, hey, I want to work with you, here's our work. And sometimes that works and sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes you can also just be way more low key about it, and just, I think it's just, you know, putting your work out there, like on Instagram or LinkedIn, and eventually someone will find it and call you for something. Like, it's,
Yeah.
and I don't think it's one or the other. I think you kind of have to do all of it, because
Or put their work out on your LinkedIn. You know, that's
100%.
that's something that's doing. And I know it's a Marcel trick, but Marcel, I think Marcel's listening too. But he likes to walk into a room and talking to a client, or reach out to a client, and tell the client what he likes that they're doing, that he would like to collaborate on. Yeah. So meeting them where that and saying, hey, I could do this with the kind of work you're doing. It's a great way to recognize someone else's work. So
it's really hard. The current climate really challenges this right now, because everybody's worried, including us, like, is my studio going to make it or not? And because of that, you feel like you need to really speed up and expedite and get results tomorrow or today. Like it, but unfortunately, it just never works that way. Like, you kind of just have to put stuff out there with a little bit more of a long game and patience, and it usually comes back. And once you get that, like, consistency going, that flow of it going, then things pop up more frequently. But it's like, it's okay. You guys told us this at the very beginning, years ago when we started working with you. It's like, most people only do sales when it's already in red alert mode, but it needs to be like an even, steady effort 365 days a year, and then you're not going as much into the roller coasters. I mean, those roller coasters moments are going to happen no matter what, but the peaks and valleys are a tiny bit less.
I remember your roller coasters were, it's almost like you were saying, Tim, please. Yeah,
it's almost like we invented roller coasters at one point, like so.
But you can see the steady incline over the time too. Yeah, go ahead, George.
Sure. This is, well, it's the classic feast or famine cycle that we all know all too well. But the thing that I loved that you said a second ago, PJ, about the strategy of, if you're on LinkedIn and you're mentioning someone, it's really interesting, because I'm a big believer that when you're reaching out, you're always building trust, and you're always sharing expertise. But it's interesting how, like you said, Tim, you said email. People tend to think in terms of, well, if I want to communicate with this person, I need to send them an email. But I will say this, that may not be the best way for you to share your expertise. And PJ, I think you're a good example. I've seen other people do this, where you're just regularly creating for yourself, for your clients. There's things that your team are doing, and you share them, and people recognize he's just out here sharing. There's nothing self-serving about it. You're creating, you're making, you have an expertise, you have a point of view, you know, you have a strong opinion about things. And when you share that and you mention people, it's like there's this expert talking about something cool, and hey, you want to join in on this? Can I invite you into this story? That's a much more interesting conversation than, sometimes email can feel very pointed. Like you're literally writing somebody and saying, I'm expecting an answer from you. No one else is part of this conversation. It's me, and I'm putting pressure on you. Hey, what are you up to? Hey, how are you doing? Hey, call me. And I don't know what it is, but our lizard brains, when we go through that feast and we go into the famine, the clients can smell that desperation. Even if you swear that the email is not self-serving, you're like, no, I promise I wasn't self-serving. I don't know why, but clients can pick up on it. And as soon as people smell that I'm hungry, I'm desperate, I need work, they get creepy. They feel creepy. They get nervous. So you've got to find a way to get back to center, realize it's a long game, make the tough choices you have to make, but you're not going to solve it by just sending the perfect email at the right time and someone's going to award you a big project. It tends not to work that way.
Yeah, I kind of learned it from Marcel in State too. Like, they just put themselves out there, like on their Instagram and their visuals. And granted, there's no one like them. They're incredibly visual makers. But like, if you put yourself out there as frequently as possible, quite honestly, then people become familiar with you and trust you. And then it is about a conversation of like, hey, how can we it becomes a different conversation than just being like, hey, do you need motion graphics? Because then you're more of a commodity, or it's just hard to understand what's in it for them if you put yourself in the client's shoes.
So let me ask you, let's talk about leverage now. There's another question that came up, PJ, and I think you have some great expertise and also answered some of these questions on Slack. The question is when you're working for example, with a client and they ask you to do something that you don't necessarily do, but you know the perfect team to do it with, how do you manage that? And he gave a few options of like, can you just say, sure, I'll do it, and you white label it? Do you tell the client I don't do that at all, but point to that person, or do you do some kind of co-collaboration, so working with the team? I think I know the primary part of the question is an opportunity at your doorstep and you don't want to say no, right? Especially in a moment where you've done some sales and kind of built that lead. But how do you leverage that moment to meet your need, but also meets the client's needs and not compromise?
Totally. We've done it every which way. We've white labeled it. We've passed it off to other studios. We've been transparent about, okay, we're working with so-and-so for this particular need. I think it depends on the project. And what I mean by that is that, like, and I learned this actually from another studio, where if it's like, it kind of backs up to your positioning too a little bit. Like if you're like the vector graphics, motion graphics company, and they're like, okay, we want this all dark, gritty CG spot from start to finish, creative vision wise, probably going to pass that off. Just be like, call Elastic or whomever. But let's say the storyboard comes in or the concept comes in and it's like, it's what you do, but then they just need this like photoreal CG monkey for this one part of it. And that's where I think you very much can outsource it, whether you white label it or bring another studio in, because it's almost like construction a little bit. Like you're the construction company, right? And you have the vision and you have the thing, but you're like, you need the guy to do the cement, right? And it's like, yes, you could do it, but you probably want to call the expert to do that particular thing, because they'll do it better and very likely cheaper. And so that's kind of how we look at it, to where if it's something really, really like specific, we'll call them for that particular thing. And it just kind of depends. I don't know. I don't really have a strong opinion versus telling the client versus white labeling it.
But there's a risk, right? I mean, there's a risk when you are upfront with the client and you say, hey, I'm going to collaborate with this group, and you've named them. If you white label, you're saying, hey, they're within my company. And therefore, if they have any issues, you have to make up for it. You have to know that you can make up for those issues that way. There's also a risk passing them on completely to somebody else and losing a client altogether.
Yeah, there is, for sure. I think where it also comes back to is just having the creative vision. I think you have to be able to always keep control of that. Like we've white labeled stuff, and where it went badly because there is confusion about what the look of the vision was. And so I think that's where you ultimately have to constantly keep that in your lap. That's what a lot of the time, yes, they are coming to you to be a maker, but they're coming to you for your creative vision. And that, you're the director. Like that's whether it's a director storytelling or if it's just an end tag. I think that's what you always have to maintain in the studio to even consider outsourcing any part of it.
Yeah, I would also add maybe like a filter to say, when you say yes and white label, it has to also match who you are as an agency and your position, right? Yeah. You don't want to say, yeah, sure, I'll take a episodic visual effects project for 9 weeks or 12 weeks. If what you do is short form commercial visual effects or 2D animation, it just doesn't match. You might have the right software and can hire the right people, but why put all that effort into building a pipeline that you're not going to leverage with your business in the long run?
Totally. We don't do it that much, to be honest, but we have, and usually it comes from just making sure we work with an expert on it, and it also comes from a budget place. Like if you're doing something you've never really done but could, it's just going to cost you more money and time. And
so true.
Not that good of a result is just calling the CG dog guy or team in South Africa that does that all day, every day.
Yeah, very well.
Yeah. So just a quick reminder to everyone here, feel free to drop questions or comments in here. I know everyone, this is a special opportunity, especially to get PJ's ear. So I'm going to ask couple questions here of you, PJ, ones that dropped in. Here's a really simple one, and this is like a timeless one that Dominic was asking. What about working with sales reps versus internal sales? Do you have an overall just opinion about one strategy versus another? Obviously, I have a lot of strong opinions, but I want to hear from you first.
Let's see, what have I learned on that? Because we have sales reps right now in all territories. It's a quality thing, honestly. We've worked with sales reps on and off for the years, forever and ever and ever, and it's really easy to think that they're a bad idea when they're not very good. Luckily, knock on wood, we have extraordinary sales reps right now in all 3 territories, and so it makes it easy to like it because they're very good and very, very hardworking. But
I would qualify that, though, that has not always been the case. That's been a very long ongoing process and evolution, and even some churn and so forth. It's Definitely. Not just like we reached out and the perfect rep said, I'm here and I want to sell you guys, and boom, it just all starts happening.
No, and it's a two-way street. And this is the part that is hard to swallow sometimes, and it was hard for us to swallow, is that like we got to work with some really top-notch teams, but it required us to also do a lot better work than we had been doing and wanted to admit that we were doing. Like, you got to give them something to sell. Like, and it's hard because everybody's really good, but like we had to take it to a completely different level to make it worth it for them to put in all that hard work. You know what I mean? I think there's a tendency to just be like, okay, I can do this, and I do that, and I think I do this great. Why isn't anybody signing me on? And it's just about, it's competitive. And also just, again, it's a positioning thing. What can you do specifically that makes it an easier sell for them to be like, I got this company and this is who they are positioning wise, you know?
Yeah.
Well, let me ask a really simple question. I'm just going to ask a really simple question, and I'm going to ask PJ if you could answer this crisply with just like a yes or no almost question. If you had to run a company purely off of only internal sales or only reps, you couldn't have both, which would you go with? So I know it's a tough question.
Let me ask you, can I ask one question, one specific? Are they experienced reps internally or externally, or is this like starting out?
Oh,
well, I would say, yeah, it's maybe it's more relevant to say if you were starting out.
I would do internal, but only because you get more of, if everybody's going to be learning from a early on standpoint, you might as well have their full attention with you in the studio, and you know, versus someone starting to learn but also having to represent a bunch of other companies. I think it's a focus thing. But
I would also say, like, there's a byproduct with doing internal where you have to learn the sales process because that's all happening internal. There's an assumption that someone outside already knows what they're supposed to be doing, and they're doing it to your best interest, and that's not always true. So to get over that learning curve, take the responsibility on soon. Once you learn how sales works, sending it to an outside sales rep is easier to manage an outside sales rep. Someone that isn't visible, you don't know what they're doing every day, you don't know how to hold them accountable. I find too many companies, and you might have this experience too, PJ, where you're hoping the outside rep, because they're the expert, is doing it, and then you become very passive in the process. And then the sales rep kind of becomes territorial. They won't tell you who they're talking to. They won't tell you the leads. They use excuses for why the projects aren't coming in. That's always your fault. It's never their fault. And you don't know which is the right answer, which one you're going to work with or not. So I tell people, you know, be ready to fail fast when it comes to sales and salespeople. Find out what works for you and what doesn't work for you, and sometimes it's just a chemical thing, like it just doesn't work out and you got to move on. But you don't have to keep on trying to make something work that doesn't work.
No.
But internal management or management of sales is so important. Knowing the makeup, supporting your sales team, giving them the right marketing materials and creative materials are all key elements.
Yep.
I think that's something I didn't understand early on, and granted, we weren't working with as strong of a sales team as we have now, but it's not an us versus them thing either at all. It's very much of a like, how can we together figure out how to reach more people more effectively for leads. The other thing that I didn't realize that is that every territory, every part of the world is different, like in terms of how they deal with work and or sales. Like the New York teams are, it's just generally a different personality and vibe versus Midwest versus West Coast. And I think it's really important, and I still don't know the extent of it, but I think it's important to ask a lot of questions and really understand the energy and how people respond to things or not respond to things, because they are different. It's just tempting because we feel so much pressure as business owners, and there's so many projects going, to just be like, I want just this one way of doing it that's going to cover everything. But
yeah,
it just
doesn't happen.
Right.
It doesn't happen.
Well, you know, I'll just add this comment, and then I want to ask another question. I tend to find that studios and production companies that do well with reps, it's because they have strong internal sales. Like because the rep is almost competing with internal sales, and they have to do better than your internal sales. If you only rely on external, it's not a great thing. But let me ask this question of you, PG. I think this is a really interesting philosophical one. Theophilus was asking this question, that as an agency, how do you protect the ideas when you pitch to a client? Like, do you use NDAs and here's our beautiful creative, but you have to sign this first? I'm really curious about this, to see what you think.
This is a very complicated one, and we've gotten burned on this so many times.
Well, from a strategy standpoint, is it something that's always needs to be addressed? Like there's different types of clients. We know these people well, we trust them. We don't know these people well, we don't. And then you manage accordingly.
Let's see.
Well, let's say this, PJ. Let's start like a non-disclosure agreement, right? There's obviously an NDA that's necessary, obviously, between you and your employees, because there's a sensitive work that you're doing. There's creative things you have going on, and you don't want it published on the internet. You don't want to give that stuff ahead of time. And honestly, you want some responsibility between you and the artist you're working with to give credit where it's due. And you're making a promise to your employees or the artist you're working with, say like, I'll say that you worked on it, but in return, you also have to say Laundry was the people that came up with the concept. When you convert that to the client, it becomes a little bit different, because the client is going to own that idea 100%. They're going to claim it, and they're actually the ones who get the awards at the award ceremonies. So you have a different relationship when you're doing that work for hire with a client.
Yeah, I mean, it's tricky, right? Because you kind of nailed it on the head. It's work for hire. It's their idea, their concept, and then we come up with ideas to bring it to life. But ultimately, if we're doing it right, it's very specific to that particular brand. So there's not really a ton we can do. I mean, there's not even a ton we want to do. Like, it's like, this is your brand. Like, this is an idea for your brand, and here it is. I think where it gets really tricky and very, 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 very frustrating is in the pitch phase. So like, if you pitch an idea against, 2 other companies or more, and then they don't go with you, but then still use something from it, your team, me, everybody's just like, what the fuck? Like, and that gets really, really ugly, and it makes us hate the industry when that happens. And it doesn't happen a lot, but sometimes it does. But it's also really confusing too, because sometimes the agencies particularly will give you very sort of scripted concepts that they want you to realize visually, and you're like, well, I did it on that, but then it's like, okay, well, that I did somewhat was already in their storyboard, and so it gets kind of a gray area. But I'll tell you what I've learned is that the brands and company and agencies that we work with closely, that have a relationship together with us, seem to operate with a lot more integrity, and even like, we've even had times where an idea or a frame, something we pitched, we didn't get the job, but was produced, and had a client, hit us up and apologize and say it was completely accidental. Like, it was just one of those things.
That's
right?
really cool.
But then where we get burned is usually by strangers, people we've never worked with before. That's where we get particularly.
There's a big rule of thumb there, right? And I'm guessing too, when you work with brands and you are the agency, there's a bit of a different nuance to how that is managed as opposed to when you're working with agencies.
100%. I try to have thick skin at this point and just make stuff, put it out there, and while I would be disappointed if I don't get a particular project, I really try to move on as fast as possible, because it's equally as emotionally disturbing to my psyche to just lose the pitch and not have an idea being taken. Like but it's so complicated, that process, like psychologically, that I just try to just be like, okay, done.
Yeah, I think my advice would be like, you want people to protect their risk, especially if they're going to spend money beyond what the client's given them to pitch. You want to know for certain that you're somewhat protected. And you're right, PJ, that's kind of relationship based. Can I trust this person? If not, then you can put some legal stuff in place, a non-disclosure, a non-compete, an ownership rights, so that you can have a contract that says, hey, you can only use my idea if you pay me for that idea. And that might or might not be accepted by that client. So just know that that's what you're looking for. But also, like, as a business owner, a creative business owner, you have to recognize the ability to come up with creative ideas is what you do for a living. So to be so hung up that one idea at one point was taken or moved on can't be what slows you down in your career. And there has to be some give and take in this environment that you can say, forget it, I can come up with 10 more ideas. It's when you have money in the game that you're taking more risk, and you want to be smarter about that.
That's exactly how I look at it, is what you just said, where like it hurts a few times. But I definitely am like, well, I could come up with 25 more of these tomorrow versus just this one thing of getting hung up on. Like, I mean, if they took like your entire pitch and recreated it start to finish for a 30-second spot, like, that's pretty fucked up, and it would be hard not to. But if it's like some little thing, I have gotten really bent about that in the past, but at this point I kind of just let it go.
Yeah, and if you have a petty mentality and you stay petty, you'll be a petty company. You have to work with abundance. You have to understand abundance. You have to create abundance in order to kind of move things forward. And that one thing I think I've learned long ago was forgiveness. Like, sometimes I recognize, like, well, if someone screws me over, I'm just going to have to forgive them, and I get over it. I move on. I think that's the healthiest place. We don't want that to happen. I'm not saying don't protect yourself. You have a legal right to, but you have to realize you're working and swimming in an environment where many things are coming and going.
But let me also say something to like slightly counter this. It's a lot harder to do when you're a smaller studio and every project matters. Like, I will say, like, it's just to put myself in my, in other people's shoes or earlier shoes. Like, if you have like one project a month or two, and every little pitch, every little thing counts, like it's so hard to just sort of be that mellow about it.
Yeah,
right.
be that open with it. Well, I remember, Tim, something you said, and I know we're over time here, so we should try and wrap this up. But I remember one time, Tim, someone was having that classic rant, right, about someone stole my idea, and you made this comment. You said, something to consider is if someone can steal something from you that easily, it may not have been your idea to begin with, right? Like, there are big ideas that are really valuable, but I think we tend to become greedy over time. Sometimes we put so much out there, and when somebody takes it, was it really that big of an idea? Was it really that valuable? And sometimes you have to just say, sometimes people are going to take something and it's the simplest of things, and I never really owned it in the first place. Let them have it, because I'm going to make, like you said, PJ, I'm going to make 20 more ideas tomorrow. And that's really where my power and my value is that I can make so many ideas. I can help anybody who is willing to tap into my expertise. That's where my future lies.
100%. And I know we're out of time here, but Tim, I think you'll appreciate this. I think the way to think about it is in the complete opposite direction. And as opposed to like worrying about what's going to be taken, give it all away. Like,
that's right.
Give everything away. Make it like post, like, give away stuff before anybody realizes they need it. Like, that's why I do all this stuff on Instagram, is like, hey, I'm gonna give you guys, and I've had people hit me up and say, hey, can I use that image for the background of my presentation? And it was someone at Microsoft, and you're like, yeah, dude, go and make 20 more and give them all away. And then eventually, it creates that energy where people are like, oh, okay, yeah. Like, I had someone else the other day from a client write me scripts for these characters I was making on Instagram of what they could do in animation. Like, I was like, oh, wow,
Wow.
Well, that's
That's
my
very
saying.
cool.
Work very hard and sometimes get paid for it, right, PJ? Like you're just doing it because you love doing it, and there's a lot of value to what you're doing. Some people will respect the value you're giving them; they'll pay you for that value. Some people will
and some
respect
people
it.
will take your shit.
Yeah. Here, I know we're over, but there's two more good questions coming up, and I just want to do one real quick. With Richard asked, basically, would you look at specs and pitch fees as cost of doing business? The answer is absolutely yes. You know, PJ, when we do your factors, we put calculated loss as a line item. That's a percentage that says you can spend money to do pitching, you can spend money to do spec work, and all the other projects kind of pay for. That's part of your overhead expenses. So huge investment you can make in your company is doing that. But I want to get to this one, PJ, as we're running over. It's just too good of a question. David Coe asks, how much of Laundry's work is agency work and or direct to brand work? And are you moving one way or the other in today's environment?
No, it depends on the month or the year, but it's both. I don't know. It's not half and half. It just kind of runs the range. It just, but they're both present, I would say. I don't think it's yeah, I don't know. They're different, but they're yeah, I don't know. It's.
So what's your workload right now? Agencies, direct to brand. Do you do all of it? Do you prefer one over the other?
No, I think they're all. I think they do. The direct brand stuff tends to be a little bit more branding based right now, like brand style guides and trying to come up with the same sort of creativity and stories and thinking within that. Whereas agency work tends to be a little bit more like invented from scratch somewhat, although depending on the agency. But I think they're both fun. I think we like the variety. We like to be able to like switch between.
And then how about outreach or sales tactics? Do you find you have to hire different salespeople to do direct to brand and different salespeople for agencies, and you have to have different tactics for that?
Yeah, for sure. The sales, it's hard with direct to brand because like in ad agencies, like they have a coordinator you can call and set up a screening, and you go and you present your work in person, and it you know, most of the time they just ignore you and you never hear from them again. But it's a structure that's set up, right? That you can do, and you just keep doing it. Direct to brand doesn't really have that. Like, so it's a lot harder to find your way in there, and like there's no real like formal way in. Like you can't even like, even if you like, I've researched, I'm like, oh, okay, well I'm gonna find out who the brand manager is and I'm gonna hit that person up. But if it's like Salesforce, there's like a billion people there, so it's like, you know.
Yeah, it's what I call, you never go in the front door of a brand. You always have to go in through the back door, but there may be 10 or 20 back doors, and you're wondering which title, which seniority, which department am I going to go talk to?
Totally. And again, it's like they could, like, also brands and the creatives there work slightly differently and look for inspiration in different places. Like we had a brand find our work on Dribbble for a project, whereas an ad agency project might come through because of a screening that we did, 3 or 4 months ago. I would say with both, the main thing, everything comes back to consistency. I'd say the main thing is that you're never going to get it on the first try. Like you can't just hit one up and just be like, oh, that's it. Like, that's it for the year. I'll hit them up next year. It's definitely more of a, like, you got to kind of keep at it, I think.
Yeah, and there's the truth be told, there's no pot of gold at either one of the rainbows, right? It's actually just work when you get there. There's a different type of work. There's different retainers for work, so each one has some pros and cons to it. But to think to ditch one to get the other because it's better, it's work, and it's work to get the jobs. There's the reward matches the effort you're put into it. And we, as you would probably agree, like you should probably go after both because of the disruption in the industry.
Yeah.
But it's really, I wouldn't definitely not leave one for the other at this point.
And there's a million things in between too. Like it's not just direct to brand and agency. There's film. There's the network clients. Even there's I mean, heck, there's so many different pots you can have your hand in.
Yeah. Strategy is key.
Well, PJ, here's a quote here's a little nugget. You remember several months ago when you emailed me and you sent this note, you said, hey, I thought of you and all your Rev thinkers out there on the topic of sales. You're saying last week we were about like 1/5 of the way to our monthly goal. and we were freaking out, but we kept grinding. And then in 48 hours at the end of the month, a bunch of things happened. And all of a sudden we reached our goal thanks to, and here was what you put in bold, thanks to steady, consistent outreach. So anyone who isn't optimistic, which has certainly been us at times, I can tell you it really does work, which of course you guys taught us to do. And that's what you were saying, Tim. It's just hard work. It's not some sort of a magic formula. Stop looking for the shiny object. It's like, just, that's what professionals do. Read that book, Turning Pro.
Luckily,
Don't be
I
an
have
amateur.
the
Just
best guys and girls and women and men on our team in the world that work their asses off. But like, sales is the hardest part of our business, and it's fairly thankless because it's like 99% rejection and 1% like, oh yeah, that worked. And then people change and you have to start over and try find a new way. It's just not easy.
Yeah, and speaking on behalf of our sales friends out there listening, even when you win the job, what did you do? Well, you helped us meet budget. It's not like they ever get credit for like, wow, we're exploding. Like, no, you're just bringing in the dollars to pay for the burn rate. So even that isn't, the big wins are basically at par. So it's a pretty brutal job for sure.
Yeah, it's not.
Oh, man.
I mean, I like the like. I just like pain allegedly, but like I like the hunt of it and like of trying to like. I like the trial and error part of it, to be honest. Like of trying something, seeing if it works, trying something else. Like I'm not one that likes to sit still, so it's kind of a fun, painful process for me in a weird way. But particularly early on, it was just really scary to understand. I think we all think we're all afraid we're being too annoying, or especially something like this, it's easy to be really insecure about it, and sometimes I am too. So it's interesting.
What, PJ's insecure? I don't believe it. I don't believe it, PJ.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Especially
Tim, did you see Megan's comment here? She said, I like to say it's auditioning for Broadway every single time.
It is. Right? Totally. That's exactly what it is.
And every time you audition, of course you're insecure. That just goes with the territory.
Yeah.
Well, everyone here, please give PJ a huge round of applause and a big thank you, because how awesome is it for you to take time out of your busy day and share some of your thoughts, and especially in this area that's so maddening, and it is like the most challenging part of running a creative firm is the sales part. So PJ, you are awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, give PJ an extra thank you, because we said to him, hey, we'll keep you on for 15 or 20 minutes. And it's been an extra 25.
Been 45.
Yeah. And then I feel bad because I see Joel's mom back there building his birthday cake as we're going on. So we're just using up everybody's time today.
I know.
I do have a party I have to get to, so I'm going to wrap this up, folks.
I just want to say thank you. Happy birthday, Joel. We totally love you, and we love all that you're doing. Your talk this week was amazing, and all that you're doing for our community. We appreciate you. And PJ, you are live on Slack. If people want to get a hold of you, they can find you on Slack and just make a really curious question, and PJ will jump right in there and answer that for you. So
I have one question for Joel right here that I think everybody in the world wants to know. How do you get the light on your face so bright? Because I feel like I'm in witness protection program every single time I get on Zoom.
It's a ring light. Let's see if I can show you the reflection in my phone. See my ring light? Hang on.
Oh, is that from your phone?
So you can. No, but take a look. Take a look now.
Oh,
see the ring light. So that's my reflection of my camera. I have a little ring light that
PJ, he has a little pack. He carries a suitcase, and then he carries his pack for presentation. He walks through the airports with both of them.
Because legit, this is like me with like full light, and I look like I'm on 48 hours or something.
You have to follow the Kardashians and pick up some pointers there.
Yeah.
Consultant in the modern world. I'm ready to podcast or live stream at a moment's notice, and you're going to be on the phone or on Zoom all day, every day. It gets exhausting, right, Tim?
That's right. Dustin says you also have a makeup artist on staff, Joel. He's people are chiming in now. Maybe people can give you like Amazon gift cards for your little toys to match for your birthday there.
Exactly. All right, well, thanks everyone. Thanks again, PJ. Thank you, Tim. Happy Friday, everyone. Happy birthday to me. We'll see you guys on Monday, and we look forward to giving you a sense of what's coming next with our daily briefing. So see you, everyone.
Take care, guys.
Thank you.